Ralphie was the narrator, essentially. The character was the narrator as an adult, looking back on his life. So he was connecting in a nostalgic way. It came out in the 80s, but it wasn't about the 80s. It was about the 50s, 60s, whenever it was. So these were, it was built on that nostalgia that a lot of us lived through that era, whether it was the 60s or 70s, and many of those same elements, department store Christmases, and and decorating, and then the Christmas morning rituals, and all these things. Many of us lived through that, and so it was nostalgic for us on that level. Then you get to the new one, and basically, I would caution against anybody expecting it to recapture the magic. Again, you're trying to revisit the magic.
No, it was,
and that's the only point, and that's
it was great. I found myself laughing a couple times as they did some of the flashbacks, but the original one was supposed to be, even though it was done in the mid '80s, was supposed to be in the late 40s after World War II.
Yeah.
And so when he wanted that BB gun, I related to that because in the 60s when I was a kid, I wanted a BB gun more than anything. So I didn't see the movie. The movie came out like '84. I didn't see it, and my nephew always gets on my case because this is when my nephew, when he was a kid, would spend a lot of time with me. I watched it with my nephew for the first time probably in 1994, so it was out 10 years, and I had never seen the movie. And we watched it together, and I went, how could I miss this? And he still remembers. He says, he will tell me, Gary, funniest moment I've ever spent with you ever was when Ralphie came down the stairs, and you saw the faces on the feet.
Yeah.
The doctor with the padded feet, pajamas, and that moment, I mean, we sat there just died. He said, that's the funniest moment I've ever spent with you. So, but the BB gun, even at that time, would have been in my mid-30s, or close to 40. But I saw that and went, oh, this is great. This is. Damn, I related to that. And so, then this one was done in the 70s, and it was done right after the father dies. He gets to call his father. They don't get into, and I think it was good that they didn't, because I know some of the criticism. Well, they didn't go to the funeral home, and the whole point was we're going to do the funeral after Christmas because Dad would want that. Yeah, and so that really, and so, but I mean, they brought all the characters. You have to suspend reality a little bit because you have to understand that in order to make the point, all of the original characters, except Scott Farkas, he made a major life change, but except for Scott Farkas, everybody else was really the childlike, the child in themselves that was alive back then was still very apparent in the adults that you saw today.
Yeah.
And so they the same kind of fighting back, like nothing had changed. Ralphie still daydreams, but it's in a different situation, job interview. I'm not going to give the details. Just give you maybe a job interview, and they're talking, he's daydreaming about winning a Pulitzer Prize, and everybody going, yay, Ralphie is great, and all that. So, I mean, he's still, and all of a sudden, Ralph.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so you have to suspend the belief of, well, this isn't realistic. None of it was. And so, but it was, I thought it was great at how they honor the father throughout it, especially at the old man, because that's what he called him, right? He was the old man.
Right.
And I told you the twist at the end, but I don't want to tell everybody else the twist at the end, because the twist at the end is really, when you realize what the twist at the end is, your response is,
yeah, I couldn't believe Iron Man died. But it's, you look at it, and I think it's, and again, I couldn't even remember what the timeline of the original movie was, because so many things related to, I think, a couple, 2 or 3 maybe generations.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Of those Christmas moments and traditions and the process of going through Christmas, you know, especially when you have multiple kids, but also in a day and age when you just went outside and your parents would go play, get outside. You know, you would just leave and you would just go hang out with other kids in the neighborhood, or you would walk to school where, you know, few kids these days, you know, do that. I know some still do, but all these items that are, you know, nostalgia based. Well, you can look at the pajamas, right? That represents all the things that mom and dad got you that you really didn't want to wear. And it could be, for me, it was a pair of checkered pants, polyester slacks. And it was like, and it wasn't like black and white checkers, it was green and white. And I'm like, green and white? I mean, give me some blue jeans and tennis shoes, right? But then one day we went to a petting zoo, and I'll just say this. A young lamb took care of those pants forever, and we had to throw them away. Because mom was not going to wash that out of those slacks.
Well, in the original Christmas story, I mean, because whether it was the late 40s or the 60s or 70s, and, you know, for example, when they get the socks, they just throw them over their, you know, getting clothes, you know, because you'd always get your mom and dad, well, your present is socks and underwear. Yeah. Sorry, that's not a present. And so any generation would relate to that. Me wanting to get a BB gun, and I remember that I went to day camp, and now he would have been 8 or 9 years old. I probably would have been 10 when I went to day camp, and and I won the BB gun championship. I was a better shot. And I wanted a BB gun so my parents just would not get the BB gun. Probably it's a good choice for them not to, because I've eventually abused it.
I got one, and we had BB gun wars in San Antonio when I lived there.
We had slingshots. We would put these little crab apples in slingshots. I mean, they'd hurt.
No, I was going to say a slingshot can be a lot more painful than
we all would use it, right? We all would slingshot. We made them. I mean, we made slingshots.
Oh yeah.
Out of branches.
Out of branches. Yeah.
So but I mean, those are the things that you can. And this is where we go back to. Can you believe that we survived all this with all of our limbs and our eyesight and everything else? And so you know, that's what made it, I think, so. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have a question to ask. Is that movie, because I know my niece loves that movie more than anything. When we get, and she's now in college, but I can guarantee when if everything is cool and I can make it back and I'm better, and we gather at my sister's house for Thanksgiving, she'll say Christmas Story. Yeah. You know, she gets it, and you just wonder, well, is it more male-centric? By the way, anything taboo here? Is it more male-centric because it's about boys, or is it universal? Now, my sisters, they understand it completely. They understand. Yeah, right. And again, my sisters were also part of beginning the famous Erie McNamara theater.
Yeah, that story, by the way, is on the way.
Yeah, the Gary, the best. My Red Ryder BB gun. Yeah, even though I never wanted it, my brother just got it for me.
Yeah, right.
It was. But yeah, so with this the new one, mindless great fun with the great message of honoring your father.
You know, I think sometimes we forget how to enjoy things. I've said this for a while. Having 4 children and 8 grandchildren, there are 2 ways to go to the movies. You can sit there and roll your eyes, or you can just kind of understand why your kids want to see that, right? And I'll never forget my 2 oldest. I'm going to get in trouble. I'll my gosh. Today is my oldest turns 40 today. Okay, I need a nap.
So do I.
Yeah. The movie Titanic. They had already gone to the movie theater multiple times. Remember that whole thing? Girls were going to see it. Leonardo DiCaprio was, that was, I think, his first major role on the big screen that really just went over the top and killed at the box office. And I thought, okay. And then on Christmas Day, they wanted to go see it again. And my wife said, well, my son didn't object, so we're like, okay. So we go and we see it, and it's like, all right, and the critical thinker in me is like, oh, well, that never happened. These people weren't even on the boat. And that's not even, and it was like, well, there were some cool things in terms of the cinematic presentation of it, scary things that, and then you think about the actual souls that were lost and all that. It's like, okay. But really, my daughter's enjoying that movie, or my son enjoying, whether it was superhero movies or whatever it was when he was younger. Mentioned the passing of Kevin Conroy, the voice of animated Batman for years recently, and that connected to me because my son was very young when those started coming out. And so you think about those nostalgic things and all these, also the forms of entertainment. And I had to, as a father, it worked for me, change my mindset. These days I don't have to do that because the kids aren't around. My grandkids come over every once in a while, but they get control of the TV. I have my TV back in the room if I need to watch something else, but it's always been about knowing why they enjoy, right? And just kind of settling and trying not to invest too much into it, but there is a great value in that nostalgic, presentation of revisiting something. It's like, the Friends reunion. I don't really get it. It's like, if you want a reunion, you can still watch the shows on streaming, but they did it, and it was like, okay, the fans enjoyed it. What do I know?
Okay, I saw it.
Yeah,
and I never really watched Friends then.
Right.
Yeah, I knew it, I'd seen it.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it was good. Oh, they didn't film it in Cleveland. They filmed it. They recreated the entire street, Cleveland Avenue, for the Christmas Story Christmas in Bulgaria. Excuse me,
Wow.
Hungary and Hungary and Bulgaria.
Wow.
I'm doing this from memory now, and I've got no sleep, so
Wow.
hopefully. But yeah, they didn't do it in the United States.
Crazy. I
And
guess
then
it
this song produced it.
yeah, working on a budget, right?
Yeah, but they redid the whole street, and they talked to Peter Bill. No, it was the actor. I can't think of his name. Street Scott. And when he saw it, he called everybody else up. And he goes, "You guys, you got to come down here right now. You got to go see this. It looks exactly like Cleveland Street."
Yeah. Wow.
And they were all freaked out because when you're there, when you see it, you're like, "It can't be." Nope, they recreated everything.
Wow.
And you can't tell.
Wow. Maybe they had to go to an older part of the world to recreate something that you may not be able to create today. I don't know.
86690 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
If you like listening to Red Eye on Demand, we have more of Eric Harley and guests for you. Download RER's Extra Mile podcast. More topics and issues discussed.
Your diesel works hard. It's time to give it the treat it craves. How's Diesel Treat? Diesel Treat is the nation's #1 trusted anti-gel because it prevents gelling in the coldest temperatures without using any alcohol or harmful solvents. Diesel Treat also lubricates fuel, prevents deposits, and safely removes water, extending the life of your engine. For increased power, performance, and fuel economy, grab the only treat that's 100% guaranteed. How's Diesel Treat? With How's, you go or we pay the tow. Learn more at howsproducts.com.
Red Eye Radio and our sponsors are devoted to trucking safety. That's why we're proud to bring you the Red Eye Radio Million Mile Club. We've been saluting drivers who have surpassed the million-mile mark with preventable, accident-free driving. By reaching this milestone, you can be a part of an elite club of drivers who share remarkable safety records and demonstrate superior driving skills. If you or someone you know is a truck driver with 1 million miles or more of driving under your belt without a preventable accident, register online at redeyeradioshow.com. That's redeyeradioshow.com. The Red Eye Radio Million Mile Club would not be possible without the generous support of the fine folks from Petro Stopping Centers, House Lubricator, Motel 6, the St. Christopher Fund, and Cat Scale. We applaud the individual truckers and fleets who drive with care and keep our highways safe. The Red Eye Radio Million Mile Club, devoted to trucking safety. Register online at redeyeradioshow.com.
Truck show season is back in full swing for 2022, and Overdrive Magazine is reporting from events with a close focus on individual truck owner-operators' custom modifications to their hardworking rigs. From the rigs featured in a long-running Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville in March to events coming up on the West Coast and elsewhere, Overdrive's got you covered with videos, in-depth owner-operator interviews, and more. Find the latest and browse the archives to catch some of the most head-turning trucks working the road today via overdriveonline.com. And check out the custom rig section.
Do you suffer from any type of chronic neck or back pain? Whether it's a bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, spinal stenosis, or even bone-on-bone arthritis. You've probably tried most doctors and get little relief, or are told dangerous medications and surgeries are your only option. Dr. John Filippini, the Danville Disc Doctor, has more options for your treatment than ever before. With state-of-the-art equipment and an integrative medical office, you can have 80 to 100% relief within a few treatments to a couple of months. Dr. Filippini has helped thousands of patients, but he's never seen such great results as he has in the last couple of years. This is due to individualized treatment programs that fit each patient's needs and budget. Depending on the treatment, insurance may cover some or even all of your program. Call Dr. Filippini at 925-999-4067 to get in on his $39 exam special, or visit DanvilleDiscDoctor.com for more information. That's 925-999-4067 or DanvilleDiscDoctor.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved ones.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
I'm Gary McNamara, 86690 Red Eye. I did see an interview with Scott Farkas, and he did an interview, and he said the reason they filmed, the primary filming was in Bulgaria. They did some in Hungary. They did some again in some shots in Cleveland and Toronto to get some shots, but the primary filming was there. A house was there, and the reason why, they did it in February of this year. Excuse me, February 22 is when they filmed it. Mm-hmm. They needed to have a place that had snow. They couldn't afford to make snow. They said the reason they said I was wondering about that. They said we couldn't do it in LA, and but they didn't say why they couldn't do it in Cleveland. Right. But the fact is, they said we needed to rebuild it. We needed to build sets, and it would have been way too expensive to build those sets in the United States. Think about this: we're not a $100 million film, so in order to give it its authenticity, we actually built everything in the sets, the outside of the homes, and everything else. In Bulgaria, it was a heck of a lot cheaper to do so, and we had snow, so we didn't have to make snow.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, they often do that
that when the TV show Fargo was filming, they had to go where there, was lots of snow, and you can't count on it being in certain places like